Welcome to the She Births Show, a place to inspire your birth, evolve your parenting, and help you live a life you love. I'm Nadine Richardson, your host and creator of the scientifically verified birth education program, She Births. I'm also a mother, yoga teacher, doula, author, and speaker. At She Births, we have supported thousands of families around the world for over 13 years with our unique program, and our vision is to make birth better for every family around the world so that everyone experiences a beautiful birth no matter what unfolds. Not only do we help people have beautiful births, but we also give them the skills and the philosophy to enjoy pregnancy and make parenting easier. As well as our world-class birth ed, taken either face-to-face or online in our app, we also have a free pregnancy guide designed to help you feel calm, connected, and inspired as you and your baby grow. We have a doula matching service, the perfect way to ensure you and your partner are completely supported throughout the whole journey. And we have our Soul Mama Circles, which are the perfect postpartum network to help optimize your mindset and design your life in parenthood. Remember, if you like what you hear today, subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. If you're a parent, about to be one, fellow health professional, join us now for an inspirational deep dive into topics with experts around the globe. We hope you enjoy this special episode. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 5. Kemi Nekvapil is my guest today, and she is one of Australia's leading credentialed coaches for female executives and entrepreneurs, author of 2 books, and a highly sought-after international speaker. Her first book, The Gift of Asking, A Woman's Guide to Owning Her Wants and Needs Without Guilt, is a wonderful handbook for each of us. But today we discuss her latest publication, Power, A Woman's Guide to Living and Leading Without Apology, that I discovered through Elizabeth Gilbert's book club on Instagram. Kemi has studied leadership and purpose at the Gross National Happiness Centre in Bhutan and trained with Dr Brené Brown to become a certified Dare to Lead Facilitator. She is a powerful advocate for connected, value-based living. You can discover more and follow her on her Instagram at Kemi Nekvapil and via her site keminekvapil.com. That is KEMINEKVAPIL. Now, I'm not a huge fan of how-to books in general, but Power is so much more. It's filled with rich anecdotes and a personal narrative that makes it so easy to read and enjoy and become empowered through. Kemi gave me huge insight into the challenges of living as a minority and made me deeply aware of my white privilege. Together we talk about choosing where to birth and where power goes in the birthing room. Kemi shares with us her 2 birthing journeys and the work she did in preparation to wholeness and readiness. We talk about how we disappear by being a good girl and a good wife, and that journey of transitioning from maiden to mother, and how she knew in her soul that she wanted to mother her children in a different way. We cover a lot, so without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. I hope you enjoy.
So the reason I was a hell yes to you, Nadine, and your work is because I rarely get to talk about my birth and my birth experiences and my journey and what was given to me through my experience of being a mum, the way that I birthed, the community that was around me when I birthed, and it just took me on a new trajectory that I could not have imagined before I fell pregnant. And so I'm just really happy to share my story and answer any of your questions.
Yeah, I think you said, I've looked at your Instagram. It's a hell yes. what you don't know about me. And I was like, yes, tell me what I don't know. And it's these birth stories. And you even were a part of the maternity coalition team.
Yes, I was. Yeah. And that came, so I had 2 home births, and my birth partners both times were my husband and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law actually started home birth classes in Canberra in the 1970s. And when I went into hospital in London for my 12-week scan, I think it was, with my boyfriend at the time, now husband, who I'd known for 9 months, it's a whole other conversation maybe, we walked into the hospital and I just said to him, I don't like these places. I could feel the anxiety in me. I said, I don't want to give birth here. And I did not know there was another option. I wasn't saying it as a statement to tell me other options. It was just, I don't think anything's going to be dilating in this place.
The body says no.
The body says no, exactly. And he said, that's when I found out for the first time, my mum was one of the leading, if not the leading, home birth teacher in Canberra in the 1970s. Do you want a home birth? And I said, yep, I'll do that. Thanks. That was it. I just knew, yep, great. That'll be it.
That's great. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
And, do you want to tell us a bit about your birth experiences?
Yeah.
Because today I really wanted to, talk about your book. There's some really important aspects I want to honor, but I thought if we could lean into this conversation, this bigger conversation of where does the power go in the birthing room?
Yes.
Where does it go?
Yes.
And I've got some ideas around that because obviously I've been rubbing women's backs for the last 20 years, at the coalface, and I understand the endocrinology, the hormonal orchestration and the neuroscience. So it's an important thing, but I really want to hear your story and where was the power, in those stories.
So once I had decided yes, I actually did not meet my mother-in-law until I was on her doorstep. So I decided, my husband said, we fell pregnant. We'd known each other for 9 months. He was living in Amsterdam. He's Aussie, but was living in Amsterdam, finishing his law degree. I was in the UK. And he said, shall I come to the UK to have this baby? And I'd grown up in Kent, which is known as England's country garden. And I said, I don't want to raise kids in a concrete jungle. I'll come to Australia. And at that point, we were both, actually, my husband was really young. I was 27. He was 24. And I said, no, I'll come to Australia. And we moved in with his parents. I'd never met my mother-in-law, but once I'd said yes to the home birth thing, I think my mother-in-law and I started speaking maybe every week or every fortnight until I came out here when I was 6 months pregnant. Wow. And I was introduced to the Steiner community in Canberra, in the capital city here, because my in-laws had co-founded the Steiner School in Canberra. I'd never heard of Steiner, but before I'd met my husband, I didn't actually want children.
Wow.
And I also thought, but if I had children, I want to do it differently, but I didn't know what that meant either. And to be honest, that could have meant living in a commune, skipping through meadows. I don't know what that meant, but I just knew I want to do it differently. And so I met him, we fell pregnant, and I thought, okay, yes, I do want to have a child with this man. And, the whole journey of meeting a lot of Steiner mums, not all of them had necessarily had home births, but what I did get from that community, that was a community that I was invited into that was already made. I didn't have to make it for myself.
Yeah.
Was a community of mothers that really, really held motherhood with reverence.
Yes.
That it was something that could, if we as the women and our partners were willing to step out of the Western model of more, achieve, productivity, that we could take this part of our life. This, as my mother-in-law said to me, which I loved, the journey of maiden to motherhood, and we could hold it with spiritual reverence, that it could be an incredible experience. So I didn't have anyone, I didn't work in corporate. I'd left my whole life in London. I could devote myself to being a mother at home. I wanted to be, and we had the resources to do that because I moved in with my in-laws.
Yeah.
And we read a lot of books. My mother-in-law gave me all of her books in the 1970s, and my boyfriend, now husband at the time, were laughing. I'm sure you'll know Spiritual Midwifery was one.
Yeah. birthing in buses with plaits.
And always talking about how psychedelic it was. And we were like joking, oh, yeah, birth, man, it's so psychedelic. And yet, when in it, looking my husband in the eyes and going, oh, my God, this is really psychedelic. He's like, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an altered state.
If you allow it.
It's not even if you allow it. It's if other people are also allowing the reverence of it. You know what I mean? Because they interrupt it. They just interrupt it.
That's true. And I knew, and I'm really aware, even in having this conversation, that there'll be some listeners to this that just haven't had the choice with first birth or fourth birth or whatever it is, and situations get taken out of our hands and safety for the mother and the baby becomes paramount. And actually 2 weeks before the home birth, my husband sort of checked in with me, like, how are you going with this? And I said, I'm good. Let's pack the hospital bag. And he goes, have you changed your mind? You know, I said, no, I'm 100% on for the home birth. But if something happens, I do not want to be in labour trying to find my PJs. I just want to know that I've got my snacks and my PJs. And if we have to go to hospital, we can pick up a bag and we're ready to go. But during the birth, what was interesting for me, I did the whole birth altar thing. Like I did the whole birth altar thing. I think there were 11 people in the house when I gave birth to my son. And that was 4 generations of the same family. So not my family, but all of my husband's family were in the house, from my son's great-grandmother to his grandparents to an aunt and uncle, his mum, his dad, and 2 midwives.
Wow.
And an exchange student from Germany. And my brother-in-law, who was 18 at the time, who decided that he was going to make the first birthday cake for his nephew. And he was more stressed about the birthday cake than the birth. And we're like, yeah, it's not really about the birthday cake so much. We do need to give birth to the baby and then we'll eat the cake. But what I noticed in that, and this is for me, that sense that I had in the hospital of nothing is going to dilate here, was that at one point my midwife, who I had absolute love and trust in, and my mother-in-law, who I absolutely had love and trust in, were having a conversation just outside the room. And I suddenly felt incredibly paranoid. And I remember just shouting, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And I remember thinking, wow, or post-birth, wow, that's how I felt when you're in such a vulnerable state with people that I trusted and loved. How would it be if there were random doctors and nurses coming in and out of the room in that vulnerable state, and how that would affect my trust in myself? And as you said, the trust in the people holding the space for me. Yeah. We had a birthing pool that was set up in our bedroom. I think it was there for 2 weeks before. And I remember saying to my mother-in-law at one point, I thought the pain would stop. I thought it would stop when I got into the pool and I was on all fours. I said,
it can be really disappointing.
Yeah. I said, I thought the pain would stop now. She was great. She said, the pain will stop when you give birth to this baby. So let's do this. And she noticed that I was holding on when it came to the pushing stage. And I'll be honest, out of everything, the bit that I found most confronting was that final pushing phase. And the midwife said to me, do you want to reach down and feel, his scalp? And I did. And in hindsight, I actually wish I hadn't. And I didn't the second time round, because it kind of brought me into a reality that something was coming through my vagina, which I think I hadn't been in such the physical state of it. I'd been in the more emotional, spiritual state of it. But it was my mother-in-law that said to me, you need to let go. She could tell that I was holding on. She said, you need to embody, I'm a Leo, a lion, and you need to growl this baby out of you. And she had a nappy wrapped around her forearm, a terry cloth nappy, and I was biting into her forearm as it felt like my hands and knees were coming out of the water as I was pushing. Mm-hmm. And Benjamin arrived, and all of it makes me emotional now. Because we part of the Steiner thing, there's all this beautiful harmony and singing, and we just, in harmony, everyone sang this song. As my husband was cutting the cord, and we were just surrounded with family. And that night, my husband slept with our son on his chest at home.
Yeah.
And we woke up the next day and thought, okay, now what? Now what do we do now?
Can someone make me a really big breakfast, please?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Is that cake, please?
Yes, exactly. Bring me the cake.
Yeah, it's so, birth is so animal and so profoundly spiritual. It's so practical and pragmatic, and yet it's so etheric and emotional. It's just it is that meeting place.
Yeah, and it's messy. It's messy. And I remember reading so many texts about how birth became medicalized, and this is kind of where we get into the feminist and the patriarchal narrative of, when the Victorians were kind of like, I don't know, these women are getting a little bit it's getting a bit messy, isn't it? They're getting a bit animalistic. We kind of can't control it. Bit noisy. Let's just strap them down. And I remember just someone saying, and I'm sure your listeners have heard this, like when someone just said to me, we wouldn't, when it comes to the pushing phase, we would never, ever do a number 2, excrete. I don't know what language you want to use, family language. Do a poo lying down. It would be the most ridiculous concept to think that you would ever have a poo lying down on the toilet. And the body needs that gravity. And obviously, because I have Nigerian heritage as well, I know the stories of women. Yeah. Not that there isn't, a high birth rate in this. I don't want to kind of in some ways, romanticize the idea of giving birth in a field, but that women for millennia have gone into fields, birthed their children, strapped their children on their back and gone back to work.
That's wild.
And which means that through history, how we have done it is through hanging poses or squatting or on all fours, because we never had access to beds.
No.
And as we know, once we're horizontal, that's where interventions happen and all of those things. So look, I just feel the reason I joined the Maternity Coalition, there were 2 reasons. After I'd had my birth, I bumped into 2 women. I didn't know them that well at the local shops. And actually, I was very blessed, talking about reverence, that the part of the Steiner thing or part of my mother-in-law's thing, and because I had all these family members, I lived in a house with 4 generations, I didn't leave the house for 6 weeks, which is very similar to the Indian.
That is 40 days rest for 40 days immunity.
I
mean, it's so important.
If you can, and that's the thing, we don't live in a society where, one, that is necessarily possible for many, but also it's not held with any importance.
Yeah,
it's like power is, as a woman, is to do all the things and get straight back to work and do all those things. But these women said to me, "How was your birth?" And I was like, "It was amazing."
Right.
And I could tell by their reaction,
I know
that was not the right response.
Yeah.
And I just felt this, I've said something wrong. And I kind of felt myself justifying. I then went, well, obviously, blah, 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 blah. I went and I thought about it, and I just thought, wow, the narrative is, as all the media that I knew about birth before I learned from my mother-in-law, was that birth is horrendous, that it is only pain, that it must be managed and controlled, and that other people know more about our bodies than we do.
That's right.
So once I'd had my birth and it had been a successful home birth, and once I'd had these reactions from these women, I actually can't remember how I found out about the Maternity Coalition, but I realized that I wanted to be part of a conversation where women got to choose whatever birth they wanted, but from a place of real empowerment and knowledge and power, and not as a default of, well, that's just what you do. My mum's birth was horrendous, therefore. My sister said that she had this, so therefore I will. But actually, we choose as individuals, who am I and what do I want? I've had many women say to me since my home birth, I really want a home birth, but I'm not sure. And to be honest, Nadine, I said to them, if you're not sure, don't do it. And if you don't have everyone that's going to be in that birth room supporting you 100%, don't do it. Because you're going to feel so vulnerable that the chances of things going wrong, and you're not going to be able to still yourself through that whole transition. You're going to need people to hold you. And if you know that someone's questioning it, I just don't think it's safe emotionally or physically for the birthing woman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, reverence, boundaries, like so much of what you talk about in the Power Book comes into play in birth, because obviously, it is the maiden to mother. It is an initiation. It is a time for us to claim our power as women. And women see that. Like, we see that photo of that woman looking elated and proud. She's just like run this friggin' marathon through her body while she's walked this horrific labyrinth in her mind of all her fears, doubts, and worries. And she's come to the other side. And we know we want a taste of that. The problem is, unless I think you're surrounded by people who are nurturing that and supporting you towards that, it so easily gets managed and taken away. And I think what people don't understand is that, oxytocin and estrogen, which is what we get pumped full of in birth, is adaptability hormones. They're like the hormones of keeping the peace and keeping the family and the tribe together. They're the ones that keep harmony.
Yes.
And then those beta endorphins come into our frontal lobe, into the neocortex, and they shut us down. So that part of us that can potentially stand up for ourselves in a boardroom, in a meeting and speak out, it can't do that. It's incongruous to the birthing, to that vulnerability, to that opening, that surrendering. So to me, it's just so critical that we do start to explore, like, how much power do I want to experience? How much responsibility? And I think those words, those principles that you bring forward in your book, that downloaded, right, for you? You're in Oroville.
Yeah, sorry, I just suddenly just thought I just would listen to you forever. That's okay. That was so beautiful what you just said.
But it's true. So it's the truth, right? Yeah. But then, like, all of your principles of power, actually, women could read this book as pregnant and just reflect on and apply into that experience that's coming into their lives. Where am I adopting presence? Can I be with myself?
And now for a quick break. At She Births, we believe that pregnancy, birth, and matrescence, the sacred postpartum, is an awesome rite of passage. Our free holistic pregnancy guide offers you 6 months of weekly support. Drop straight into your inbox, or within our free She Births app, you can get content that will nourish your body, mind, and soul. You can enjoy prenatal yoga videos, great recipes, birth affirmations, course discounts, and more. From me and my team, the creator of the world's only scientifically verified antenatal classes, it is our gift to you. Sign up today and receive the free holistic pregnancy guide at shebirths.com/PG. That's shebirths.com/PG.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two things I kind of feel like I wish I'd had the power of birth now in the book. Anyway, I have to put that into another book.
I think it should be another book because, I've wanted to I talked to Emma Isaacs about it too. I mean, what a powerful lady.
Yeah, we spoke. That's one of the ways that we connected.
I bet you did.
We were both home birthers. That was one of the ways that connected us. Yeah. So the principles of presence, ownership, wisdom, equality, and responsibility, you're so right. My goodness, like that form of power in the birth room. Can I be present? And I think for so many of us that identify as women is that we're socialized to be, I'm English, right? So, to be mannered and to be prim and to be proper and just have everything together, and it can be really, really hard to be present to the mess of birth and the transformative pain. Because it's not just pain for pain's sake, it's a transformative pain. Can you be present to that? Can you be present to what it is that you want and need? Ownership, can you take ownership of your birth experience? Wisdom, can you tap into your innate wisdom around knowing that your body was, whether we like it or not, it's so interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like 100%. There are so many more women now that do not want children. I completely understand why women do not want children. I have 2 children. I love my children. I didn't want children. And I understand women that actually don't want to have children. And yet our bodies are still geared to give birth to children. Yeah. And I think there's this innate wisdom of us trusting, unless there is an emergency, my body does know how to do this. And then there's equality, especially for those that are birthing in hospitals or with their partners or in-laws. Like, I am equal to you, and I understand that you might have wants around this, but actually I am the birthing woman. and I need to stand in my equality and in my humanity to be able to state what it is I want. And then responsibility is not only taking responsibility, I think, for your birthing experience, whether it goes incredibly well or not so well, but also, as I speak about in the book, taking responsibility for our healing. And I remember meeting an 85-year-old woman when I was sat the birthing coalition stall in Canberra one Sunday at the markets. And this 85-year-old woman came up to me and she said, "Can I share my birthing story with you?" Oh my gosh. She was crying still. I feel it. I told you we're both cryers. Like 65 years after.
Yeah.
She was still traumatized by how her birthing experience had been taken away from her.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned from other women within the coalition around, writing the healing letters, either to yourself, to forgiveness, or to the obstetrician that you never send, or maybe you do send, or to the nurses, wherever you felt your power was taken away or where you gave it away. And I think that fifth principle of responsibility and power really speaks to women also taking responsibility for their own healing if there's been any trauma through birth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love the prompts that you have at the end of each chapter. I love how you break things down so beautifully. It's so tangible. And of course, I love how you allow us to access through that questions like the imprints, our heritage, our privilege, and our beliefs. And I think it's just so important that we start to take responsibility for that inner world and that lineage that comes through us, because it doesn't start here. Like, we know that, right? That's another book. I just had a massive book splurge and I just got that one, it didn't start with me, because, it's generations back. And I mean, She Births is purely because my mum was knocked out, really the anger that I felt around that, the disconnect from her, me claiming some of my birth power, and realizing that I wasn't alone. That's the She Births is all because of that,
Yes.
It's all because of that. But I do want to really highlight how beautifully and compassionately you allow us who have white privilege to understand your experience. And it made me so sad. It just made me so sad just hearing about the racism and having to deal with that. It was and that's why I'm really looking forward to talking to my potential daughter-in-law about it. What is her experience? She never talks about it.
No, because we know not to talk about it. Those of us of colour that navigate predominantly white spaces, part of our conditioning is to never make the white people, the Anglo people, uncomfortable. And we know about white fragility, and it's a real thing, and it's the same with kind of motherhood fragility as well. One mother makes a comment about another mother and we can't it's hard to be with it. So we go on the defensive. And I think that's why this whole conversation, that erupted in 2020. And obviously for those of us that are Black Lives Matter has been going on for a very, very long time. But the eruption of it and the global recognition of it in 2020, that idea of going from, it's not about I'm not a racist, it's about anti-racism. And what does that actually mean? And definitely for me, writing Power, looking at the places where I have felt most powerless have been more around my race than around my gender. I share in the book experiences of both. But that, it's lived, like we live it, and I'm someone that has incredible privilege in many ways. I don't have race privilege and I don't have gender privilege, and they are the two kind of privileges that I am privy to most of the time. I don't wake up thinking, I wonder if I'll experience racism every day, but I'm not surprised if it comes because I've been in this skin for 48 years, and I've been aware of racism since the age of 5 because I didn't have a choice. And I know that some people that don't have to experience it think that the best thing they're doing for their children is shielding them from it, as opposed to saying these have been global narratives around certain people. And actually what we want to be as humans is kind. We want to look inside and see. I talk about in the book my internalized racism, my internalized patriarchy, because the narratives are strong, and that's ownership. That's what I talk about in ownership. We need to look at what are the stories that we have been told? So one of my predominant ones is that you are Black and you are of no worth and you are of no value. And I believed that for decades, and I never questioned it. I didn't go around thinking, I wonder if that's true that I'm inferior as a Black person in England. No, it was very clear that I was. And then we have to look at what are the stories that we've witnessed from other people, as you say, and going back to birth. It's interesting because I didn't grow up with my birth mother, but when I felt pregnant with my son, I went and stayed with her for the first time. And I said to her, can you share with me your birth stories? And she spoke about my birth. I'm her eldest, and she's given birth to 7 kids. And the thing that she said to me that was so profound, and it was kind of, for me, the gold that she gave me as a mother, because she didn't parent me as a mother like consistently through my childhood. And she just said to me, they cut me vertically. Don't let them cut you. And it just dropped in. It was like my mother had never given me really any advice, because I was, as I share in the book sort of in more detail, that I was one of the tens of thousands of Nigerian children fostered to white parents in the 60s, 70s and 80s, and middle-class Nigerian parents that very much believed the colonial story that white education was better than any other education, which we have in Australia too. And that narrative as well around, this narrative that we're given sometimes around First Nations and Indigenous people of like, well, they, in inverted commas, they, othering, don't attend school. And then you look at the curriculum they're being taught, it's like, because that curriculum has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Why would they attend school?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. We have to take ownership of our experiences, even if it's uncomfortable, and probably especially if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to share in the book. I am married to a white, I sort of joke, I am married to a white, able-bodied, cisgendered, heterosexual, middle-class male who is also a barrister. I mean, it doesn't get more tick. You can't tick more boxes.
He sounds like a good guy.
Well, but what's really beautiful about that is that he was a Steiner child.
Yes.
And that foundation of reverence and spirituality and nature and community definitely infuses how he walks the world in his privilege and the law that he has chosen to do and the people that he represents within his practice.
Yeah, because he was supporting the Yorta Yorta woman.
Tanya Day.
Yeah. So he's sounds like his heart and his actions are aligned. And I think, that's where it is tricky, that equality, like we all have a role to play in shaping global equality and the equality within us. And to put up with discomfort and uncomfortable conversations is definitely an important part, to read stories, to empathize, to understand people's experiences. But what else can we do, like to understand that equality within us and shape the global equality? I suppose as parents, there's a lot we can do.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
As parents, definitely, we need, and it's the same for me, I have biracial children, but it's the same for me when it comes to people with disability, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like we all have blinkers on around how we get to navigate the world in certain ways. And so as parents, 100%, it's the simple things. It is when you look at your child's bookshelf, do all the children in those children's books look exactly the same as your child or you? And it's not just the token book that has children of color in it. Are they all about heterosexual families? Are they all about able-bodied stories? Are they all about people that were, to just look at what is the media, because our children are taking in media all the time.
Yeah.
What are the TV shows that you're watching if you watch TV? What are the songs? What are the music that you listen to? Like, it is huge. When my youngest was young, I just realized, and actually one of my things when I had my son Benjamin was that I think it was every Friday afternoon, I'd go to the local cafe, I'd get a hot chocolate and I'd buy and I put in inverted commas, women's magazine. I'd buy a women's magazine. I'd go home, I'd put Benjamin to bed and I'd read this magazine, and it just felt like, oh, this is my time. Like, this is just my time. But I suddenly realized when my youngest was about 1 year old, I was like, I do not want them to see that this is how women are measured, that the cellulite on women's legs or in bikinis or the body stuff. I just thought, I, as a mum, am bringing that into the home. And it's not that they didn't see marketing and other things all the time, but I would talk to them about marketing all the time. I said, what do you think they're trying to sell? And so they were always curious. And even now, they're so onto it. They're so onto it, my teenagers, because I kept opening up the conversation. Why do you think that young girl's just in her knickers and they're selling a car?
God. Yeah, it's so important.
You know, so that's
so being aware of that culture.
Yeah, exactly.
The subconscious feeding of our back brain. It's going on all the time.
All the time. And I think and I think one of the things that we can do as individuals is that we need to confront the things about ourselves that when we see certain people or when we hear certain stories, and it may be you see a homeless. I was raised with one of my foster families that all homeless people, and I talk about this in the book, all homeless people have brought it on themselves. They're alcoholics and they're drug addicts. And we were made to cross the road. We would cross the road away from a homeless person. So I grew up with that narrative until my sister then started working with a big issue. And she called me one day and said, "Hey, sis," I was like, what? She goes, "I met a guy today who walked into his house. His wife was having an affair with his best friend. He sunk into a depression. She threw him out of the house, although they had equal rights. He sunk into depression. He started drinking. He lost his job. He ended up on the streets." And that was the first time I realized, probably in my early 20s, I was like, oh, so life just happens to people.
Yeah.
People don't bring it on. I mean, look, obviously we make it sometimes, but you know what I mean? I was given the narrative of it's their fault. And if they wanted better, they would do better. And this is my first experience of realizing I'm not a Christian, but seriously, there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Yeah, totally.
In any moment, at any time, you know. So for me, it's always, what does kindness look like? What is kindness in this moment? How can I be kind in this moment?
Yeah. The systems and the structures, you know, and how we internalize the patriarchy. And I think what has shocked me a lot with the women I interact with is how the internalized misogyny that exists. And it's really frustrating and really upsetting, and it really highlights my own as well. But, you know, how do we understand patriarchy and birthing and systems? Because I think, you know, colonialization exists within our minds. The patriarchy exists within our minds. And if it didn't, in the consciousness of people, we wouldn't have it, you know, because everything comes from our consciousness. So in a sense, it's that internalized kind of, we put up with how we want to be treated. You get what you settle for kind of thing. But we put a lot of faith in our systems. And I see that as the biggest sort of sadness for a lot of women, is how they go in expecting a lot of care. Well, the name is caregiver, care provider. And they come out the other side, you know, feeling like a failure, but actually really the system has failed them. So I love how you talk about in the book. So it's a very long-winded ramble, but I find it really hard to talk about it because, again, I suppose it's so enmeshed inside me.
Yeah.
You know, the system, how do we live without these systems? This power over. Let's talk about what power is and systems. Can you help us there?
Can I ask you, because I'm really curious, can I ask you, where do you see misogyny playing out from the women that you work with? I'm really curious to know.
I see it in the what they put up with, in the grooming and the coercion process that goes on, usually by a medical professional. Yeah. It can be a midwife. It doesn't have to be an obstetrician. And I you know, half my family are obstetricians and do dip obstetrics and stuff like that, and they're good people. And I don't think it's just that, but the way, I think in 50s, 60s, 70s and early 80s, they could do whatever the hell they wanted to women.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
They just knocked them out. They strapped them to the bed, twilight sleep era. They said, okay, you're too small. You can't have scheduled Caesar for you.
Yeah.
But now it's a lot more sneaky. Now it's like a sort of grooming and coercion process, and it's a sort of chipping away at that confidence in yourself. It's often sarcasm. It's often like snide remarks about their body weight. I think, keeping partners out of meetings during COVID was even part of it. Keeping doulas out for too long out of the hospital system was a part of that chipping away and taking, again, power over the whole birthing thing. Sounds a bit conspiracy-ish, but, that's what I see.
It's well, you're in those rooms and you work with the women and and we live, as you said, we live within these systems and these structures. And I do think that women, full stop, and those that identify as women and birthing women, we need to educate ourselves around, I don't think, there are some of these books on the market that are, and look, not every single woman is interested in feminism. I understand that. I don't think that's necessarily going to support a lot of women, but, everyone's allowed to believe what they want and put their energy and attention where they want.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there are, as you say, there are bigger things at play than what we're being told. And unless we are aware of what misogyny and patriarchy is, unless we're aware of this idea of power over, and for the listeners that don't know, power over is what Brené Brown talks about. And as I'm a Dare to Lead facilitator and I facilitate her work with teams and organizations, what she talks is power over is the form of power that we all know, right? It's it's a scarcity mentality. It was, I will keep power no matter what it takes. And for me to have power, I have to take power from you. Whereas power with or power for is equals sharing power together. So I would imagine how that would look in the birth room. Power over is, no, darling, no, you don't know what's best. I know what's best. I'm the professional. So you just need to do what I say. Then everything is going to be fine. Where power with would be, I understand that, but this is what I have learned. This is what I want. So where can we meet in the middle of what you're telling me my body can and can't do and what I want to do? And to be honest, we forget that we have choice. And as someone that has been through 2 home births and what that is and how vulnerable we are in that space, if I did not feel comfortable with my obstetrician or my midwife, I'd find someone else.
Yeah. That's right. And that's what
I have the resources to. I understand that maybe everyone doesn't, and they're part of a system where they don't get that choice. But if I had the choice, I would not have anyone convince me to trust them. I either trust them or I don't. And that's ownership. That's wisdom.
Yeah.
And now for a quick break. Contrary to popular culture, She Births believes that childbirth can be the best day of your life. It is designed perfectly to be empowering, enriching, and bonding. An awesome rite of passage. Our childbirth education programs have helped thousands of families around the world since 2008, allowing families to not only feel empowered through education, but also connect with their innate birthing wisdom to create the best birth possible and begin their parenting journey with confidence. She Birth's unique methodology was scrutinised in university trials and has been published in the British Medical Journal for improving birth outcomes for both mother and child. I'd like to invite you to begin preparing for birth today. Just go to shebirths.com to discover our 2-day weekend face-to-face courses or access the online courses from anywhere around the world. That's shebirths.com. Create your beautiful birth with the world's only scientifically verified antenatal classes.
I think there's a lot of wisdom within the body. And I think you say we all have an inner wisdom to guide our lives. And I'm finding that it is so important, I suppose, as being a yoga teacher for the last 20-something years, to keep coming back to the body as this house for our wisdom. The body says no, the body says yes, but of course there's also, in holding an extra being in our bodies, we amplify that consciousness. That spirit's also there to guide us as well. And so we have that intuition. And so much of that, our lifestyle, push, shove, do, sit at a desk all day and dissociate from the body is actually a way to take power over somebody, because they lose that connection to the body, therefore to their own intuition and to their own wisdom.
And it's interesting, though, because I also think that our wisdom changes, because just hearing you share that actually reminded me. So I too have a 25-year yoga practice, and I actually had really painful, scary, unpleasant pregnancies both times, especially my first pregnancy. And to be honest, in hindsight, I realized by my second one that I probably had prenatal depression, not spoken as much about as postnatal depression. And it was great for me to be in a house. And that's the other thing, is that women for time immemorial have birthed with other people and other women. And, but my mother-in-law knew to keep an eye on it the second time around. But I had prenatal depression. And I think one of those reasons was I had all these resources that supported me as a woman before I became pregnant. I then had this pregnancy where I was in pain all the time. And people were like, it's because you're a yoga teacher and your core is so strong. And that means that this and this. And I'd have all these tests. And one day I thought I was miscarrying and I wasn't. But there was all of these things. And I remember just thinking yoga's always worked. And I remember one day getting on my yoga mat, trying to do yoga, and it didn't work. And I remember just collapsing in on myself and just sobbing, just going, I don't know what to do. And that was another, but I understand now, it was another level of surrender. It was kind of like being told all the systems and the structures that you have had in place to support you to this point, to the maiden, are not the same structures that are going to support you in motherhood. And although I did, yoga came back over time, there was something else that supported me, which, if I'm honest, was basically instant noodles for breakfast with broccoli and like going from being a vegetarian to a meat eater. I think I ate a whole cow in 9 months. I was even eating chili beef while I was like in contractions, eating chili beef in my birthing pool. And my midwife said, you probably need to slow down on the chili beef. And then as soon as I gave birth, I had no interest in meat whatsoever. I was low in iron, and I just thought, I'm just going to go with it. I'm not going to, even then I knew I don't care about personally, because it wasn't a health risk. I don't care about how much weight I put on. I'm birthing a child for the first time in my life. I'm going to trust my body. I'm going to trust that it wants instant noodles in the morning with broccoli, because that's the greens. And I was, like I said, I was struggling emotionally with the whole thing. And so I just surrendered. I just surrendered to the process.
Yeah, how beautiful. Do you think it was, there was so many changes that went on in your pregnancy, in that first one, in that moving countries and
absolutely
together with your partner.
Yes.
Living with in-laws, as much as she sounds great, still got its things, right? Do you think it was the identity shift, like finding the worthiness? Was there stuff, I imagine, around your mum? What was coming up for you?
So definitely it was, I was 28. All I'd known was I'd made the choice to move to Australia, but I was still leaving everything and everyone I had known. I had a flatmate at the time, and that wasn't going well. So that was kind of a tension in that it was my home, but I had this person that was paying rent and their contract wasn't over. My boyfriend, now husband, had moved over from Australia to look after me because of the pregnancy, because I was finding it so hard. I have to say, the moment I arrived in Australia with my in-laws, everything changed, because I suddenly had support. They were so excited about the baby. What came up for me during being pregnant, I remember being at home one day, my husband was at work, and I suddenly had this feeling of, there was definitely grieving going on, and I definitely had this feeling of like, what if I don't know how to be a mum. I've had 5 mums. No, that wasn't what it was. Sorry. What it was I don't have a memory of my childhood. I don't have pictures of when I was a child. I need the pictures. And I actually still had contact with some of my foster parents. And I sent a letter and I said, do you have any pictures of me when I was with you as a child? And I got some back. And that was actually when the real grief came. Because I had these pictures in front of me from my first foster mum, who I still call Mummy Olive, who I still write letters. We're still in communication. And I was with her for 7 years. And my first 7 years with a couple of foster parents in between there, but she was my core attachment. And it's why I always know that I can form, deep attachment. I don't have attachment issues like many foster children can have because of those first 7 years. That's also a Steiner thing. You have your child for the first 7 years until other influences come in. But I had all these pictures laying in front of me. and I couldn't remember them. I just couldn't remember, because part of the way that foster children, or me in particular, or children that are moved around a lot, you kind of have to close the chapter because there's so much hurt and loss that you've had to be taken away from those parents that you just like, okay, that's it now, next one, because that's how you deal with the trauma. So I'd closed off. It's funny, I could remember things like my favorite rah-rah skirt that had like red dots on it. I remember the skirt, but I couldn't remember the event that I was wearing the skirt at. And I called my husband. I was a mess. I just said, I don't remember my childhood. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to something. And then I went and had a shower. He came home. I went and had a shower, and I came out and I was fine. And he goes, oh my God, what just happened? And I said, I said to him, one thing you'll learn about me is that when I feel things deeply, and then it's done. I don't hide it. It's not buried down. You're not going to have this explosion. It's just, I'm going to go in deep because I know I need to go through it, and then I will come out of the other side. Wow. So that was a really big part of the grief process that came up for me, which was so important, I think that's the thing that we miss. It's not just about having the baby and the clothes and it's
that's why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. Who have I been, and who do I get to be in this next chapter, and who supports me to be another version of myself, whether that is, and when I say weak, I don't mean weak at all. I mean to be a surrendered, open, vulnerable version. Who can be with me while I am being in this transition, and to move away from the people that are like, I don't know, that don't support the transition from maidenhood to motherhood.
Yeah, that's right. And now, I don't know where you're at, but I'm going from that motherhood into mugger. My son, I'm in
perimenopause. Here we are. Party. That's an adventure.
It's a wild ride, let me tell you. I'm ready to do my vision quest, and let me tell you. Yes. But it is so important, these transitions, because who we are inside. And so, by choosing a birth where you take responsibility for the birth, you also then invite and allow everything to come up that could get in the way of that birth. Yeah. And this holding on to the old identity, this holding on or not allowing that grief to move through. This is the labyrinth that we have to walk through.
That is so true. I hadn't even thought of that, Nadine, because if I'd have had that release during my birthing process, that would not have gone well at all, because I could not have had those feelings and birthed a child on my own. I would have shut it down, and I would have picked up my bag and gone off to hospital. And then the responsibility part is, if I had have done that for whatever reason, I would then take responsibility for any trauma that I felt or any healing that I might have needed, and surrendered to, I need support to get through the birth narrative I wanted and the birth narrative that played out. Because there's power in asking for help and support. There's power in saying, wow, that I'm still grieving over that, or that made me feel less than, or I had my power taken away, or I gave it away. And there's power in taking ownership of that, and then being responsible for how we then heal ourselves.
Yeah, I think I totally get that. And, I hope my doula clients and my she births is really all about like trying to implant the doula mindset and heart space, inside those people, so that there isn't this idea of like setting up for a particular outcome, a particular type of birth.
Yes.
Because I know exactly, I didn't have like the extraordinary home birth. I did have a transfer with Leroy's birth, but I know that I did better than my mum, and I got to build upon, her horrific traumatic experience. So horrific and traumatic that she still can't even acknowledge that it was that.
Because I think surely for your mum's generation, and for even with me now, I'm so blessed that my children bring round these 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds who, my gosh, this generation, they do not take the BS that we took.
No, I know.
And they are unapologetic about it, and it is fantastic. And I think we also do need to honour our mothers and their experiences of the world, and that their socialisation was, you shut up and you put up and you suck it up. And that is what a good woman is. And, I've had to be challenged by my youngest, who, before that, she decided they wanted to change their pronouns to they, them. They said, they looked me in the eyes, and, you would have read the book and I share about this at the end, but they just said, I promise you, Mum, that I will never be a good girl like you had to be.
How did that feel? Hearing
so good.
Yeah. That's job done.
Good, because I know how.
See you later, darling. Off you go.
I know how exhausting it is to navigate the world trying to be a good girl, a good wife, a good daughter, a good sister, because we disappear under the goodness. And they're a force. My youngest is a force. I'm so glad. I am so impressed by them. And then for my son as well, an 18-year-old man at this time as well, what he sees as acceptable and unacceptable compared to an 18-year-old man even 10 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
It's I think there's grace in acknowledging that our parents had a different way of having to navigate the world, male or female. Patriarchy doesn't work for men either. And that we have, as you say, maybe gone one step further than that because we have information that they didn't have. But then this generation as well are going to go a step further than us.
That's it. I mean, that's evolution. Yeah. It builds upon the shoulders, and that's a privilege, and that is something to offer gratitude for every day, actually.
Grace and gratitude always.
I'm Nadine Richardson, and you've been listening to the She Births Show. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you would like to hear more of. You can find me and my team of amazing doulas and educators at shebirths.com and our awesome community on Instagram and Facebook. Within any good app store, you can download our free pregnancy guide via She Births, 2 separate words and plural, as well as access our range of online courses. Remember, when it comes to having a better birth, an easier transition into parenthood, your education is your empowerment. Don't forget to check out the catalogue of previous podcasts, and thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the show.